Yes! I am! You can fuck me right. You can fuck me right now!
Alright, I can fuck you right now? I can fuck you right now?
Yes!
Show me.
Okay!
Show me.
Let's go.
Prove it to me.
Let's go.
Take your hand off the gun.
I will.
Take your hand off the gun.
But you have to pull my pants down.
Okay, take your hand off the gun.
Stop!
Take your hand off the gun.
Kareem, stop. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. If you don't take your hand off the gun, you is going to get shot by this.
Parking lot! Stop!
I told you. I fucking told you.
Kareem, stop!
No, bro.
Parking lot! Employee parking lot! Help!
Atlanta, Georgia, January 31st, 2023. A cold Tuesday evening. The sun had already set over the city. Street lights flickered on across downtown. Most people were heading home from work, rushing through MARTA stations, Atlanta's massive transit system that moves 500,000 people every day. Trains rumbled underground. Buses pulled away from curbs. Everyone was focused on getting home, getting warm, getting dinner on the table. But in one of those stations, tucked away inside a dark, empty parking deck, something was about to happen that would shock everyone who heard about it. Something that would expose the dark side of power, jealousy, and betrayal. This is the story of how a sergeant sworn to protect and serve became the predator. This is the story of when the badge becomes the weapon. Her name was Cheryl Lashai Clark. She was a sergeant with the MARTA Police Department, one of Georgia's largest law enforcement agencies. MARTA police officers are responsible for keeping thousands of commuters safe every single day. They patrol stations, respond to emergencies, and handle everything from petty theft to serious violent crimes across 38 miles of rail line and hundreds of bus routes. Cheryl wore the badge with pride. She carried the gun with authority. She had worked her way up through the ranks to become a sergeant, and she was married. To the outside world, she looked like someone who had it all together, a respected officer, a leader, someone people looked up to. But Cheryl had a secret, a dangerous secret that violated everything her badge stood for. She was involved with a man named Clevean Lambert, an ex-convict with a criminal record. Someone she wasn't supposed to be anywhere near, according to department rules. You see, police officers aren't allowed to have relationships with known felons. It's not just frowned upon. It's a direct violation of policy. It's a fireable offense. The reasoning is simple. These relationships create conflicts of interest. They open doors to corruption. They put officers in compromising positions. But Cheryl didn't care about the rules. She didn't care about her marriage. She didn't care about her career. She was involved with Lambert, and she had been for some time. They had history. They had passion. And like so many toxic relationships, they had drama. And when things between them started falling apart, when Lambert tried to distance himself, when the relationship began to crumble, that's when everything went horribly, terribly wrong. On that Tuesday evening, while she was on duty, while she was in uniform, while she was getting paid, by taxpayers to protect them, Cheryl made a phone call to Lambert. She told him she owed him $1,000, a debt that needed to be settled. She said she wanted to pay him back. She said she had the cash. She asked him to meet her at a MARTA parking deck, a specific location, a specific time. Think about that for a second. A police sergeant, on duty, in full uniform, with her service weapon on her hip, calling her ex-boyfriend, a known felon, to a secluded location. Already something doesn't feel right. Already alarm bells should be ringing. But Lambert agreed. Maybe he thought it was finally over between them. Maybe he believed she really had his money. Maybe he just wanted to tie up this loose end and move on with his life. Whatever he was thinking, whatever hope he had for a clean break, he made a decision. He got in his car and drove to meet her. The parking deck was exactly what you'd expect. Concrete and shadows, quiet, empty. The kind of place where your footsteps echo off walls 3 stories high. The kind of place where cars sit abandoned for hours. The kind of place where nobody goes at night unless they absolutely have to. And that's exactly where Cheryl told him to come. Not a coffee shop, not a public place, not somewhere with witnesses and cameras and people walking by. A parking deck. Isolated, dark, private. When Lambert pulled in and parked his car, Cheryl was already waiting. Her patrol car was there. She was in uniform. This should have been a quick transaction. Hand over the money. Say goodbye. Drive away. 5 minutes, tops. But Cheryl didn't have the money. She never had the money. The $1,000 she promised him didn't exist. It was a lie. A trap disguised as a promise. A way to get him alone. And Lambert realized it the moment he saw her face. What happened next was captured on Cheryl's body camera. Every word, every movement, every horrifying moment. And what that footage shows is deeply disturbing. An argument erupted almost immediately. Voices raised in anger. You lied to me. Where's my money? Why did you bring me here? Things got heated fast. The kind of argument that comes from months or maybe years of unresolved conflict. The kind of anger that's been building and building until it finally explodes. Lambert realized he'd been deceived, and he wasn't happy about it. But here's where the story takes an even darker, more twisted turn. Here's where things go from bad to absolutely unthinkable. During the confrontation, things turned physical. Lambert, who was completely unarmed, no gun, no knife, nothing, reached for Cheryl's service weapon. Maybe he was trying to protect himself. Maybe he felt threatened by a police officer who had just lured him to an empty parking deck under false pretenses. Whatever his reasoning, a struggle broke out. 2 people fighting over a loaded weapon in an empty parking deck with no witnesses around. This should have been the moment Cheryl called for backup. Every officer is trained for this exact scenario. You press your radio, you call for help. You say, "Officer needs assistance." You give your location. Backup arrives in minutes. This should have been the moment she used her training, her years of experience, her knowledge of de-escalation tactics. This should have been the moment she stepped back, created distance, controlled the situation like she was trained to do. But instead, something absolutely bizarre happened. Something that makes you question everything about this case. According to the body camera footage, in the middle of this violent struggle, Cheryl offered Lambert sex. Right there, in that parking deck, while on duty, in uniform. She propositioned him. And Lambert accepted. Let that sink in for a moment. A police officer, on duty, getting paid with public money, wearing a badge and a gun, offering sexual favors to stop a fight with her ex-boyfriend who has a criminal record. Try to wrap your head around that. try to understand what was going through her mind. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't in any training manual. This was desperation. This was someone so entangled in a toxic relationship that the lines between personal and professional had been obliterated completely. But whatever happened between them in those moments, whatever transpired in that parking deck, it didn't calm things down. If anything, it made everything worse. The tension escalated. The situation spiraled further out of control. Lambert made a decision. He decided he needed to get out of there. This whole thing had gone too far. He turned away from Cheryl. He ran to his car. His keys were in his hand. He opened the door. He got inside. He started the engine. He was leaving. He was trying to escape this nightmare. And that's when Cheryl pulled out her service weapon and opened fire. 8 shots rang out in that parking deck. 8 bullets fired at a man who was trying to drive away. 8 times, a trained police officer made the conscious decision to pull the trigger. 3 shots went through the driver's side window while Lambert was still sitting in the car. Glass shattered, metal punctured. He ducked, trying to protect himself, trying to get the car in gear. Then 5 more shots as his car started moving forward, as he was retreating, as he was fleeing, as he was trying to get away from a woman with a gun who had just shot at him 3 times. Lambert's car was moving. He was driving away. He was no longer engaging with her. He was no longer a threat. His back was to her. He was escaping. But Cheryl kept shooting. She kept firing at a fleeing vehicle. She kept pulling that trigger even as the distance between them grew. Now here's what makes this even more damning. Here's what proves this wasn't about officer safety or protecting the public. Cheryl never turned on her patrol car lights. She never activated her sirens. She never radioed for backup. She never pursued the vehicle. She never notified dispatch. She never told her supervisors that shots had been fired. She never called for medical assistance. She never filed an immediate report. Nothing. Silence. She shot at her ex-boyfriend 8 times in a public parking deck and then stayed completely silent about it. Think about what that means. Every single police shooting requires immediate reporting. Every discharge of a weapon must be documented. Every use of force has to go through proper channels. These aren't suggestions. These are ironclad rules designed to ensure accountability and transparency. But Cheryl followed none of them. She didn't follow protocol because this wasn't a police action. This wasn't self-defense. This wasn't an officer protecting herself in the line of duty. This was personal. This was revenge. This was a woman with a gun and a badge, using both to settle a score with someone who had rejected her. Eventually, inevitably, the truth came out. You can't fire 8 shots in a parking deck and expect nobody to notice. You can't shoot someone and just go back to your patrol like nothing happened. Someone heard those shots, someone reported it. Questions were asked. And once questions started being asked, the whole rotten truth began to unravel. An internal investigation was launched by the MARTA Police Department. Investigators pulled the body camera footage, they interviewed witnesses, they reconstructed the timeline, they examined the evidence, they looked at Cheryl's phone records and discovered the pattern of contact with Lambert, a known felon. They found out about the forbidden relationship. They uncovered the lies, and what they found painted a very different picture than the one Cheryl tried to tell. Her story didn't match the evidence. Her version of events didn't hold up under scrutiny. The footage contradicted her claims. Everything pointed in one direction. This wasn't self-defense. This was attempted murder, dressed up in a police uniform. The investigation took months. Paperwork was filed. Reports were written. Supervisors who should have known about her relationship with Lambert were questioned. How did this go unnoticed for so long? How did a sergeant manage to maintain a forbidden relationship with a convicted felon without anyone catching on? Were there other violations? Were there other incidents that were swept under the rug? In January 2024, nearly a year after the shooting, nearly 12 months after those 8 shots rang out in that parking deck, Cheryl Lashai Clark was terminated from the MARTA police force. She was fired. She lost her badge. She lost her gun. She lost her job. She lost the career she had built over years of service. She lost the authority and respect that came with that sergeant's uniform. But here's what will make your blood boil. Here's what will make you question the entire justice system. She faced no criminal charges. None. Zero. Not attempted murder. Not assault with a deadly weapon. Not even reckless endangerment. Nothing. The official reports cited self-defense, despite the body camera footage showing an unarmed man fleeing, despite the evidence of 8 shots fired at a retreating vehicle, despite the clear violation of protocol, despite the forbidden relationship, despite everything. The report said self-defense, and no charges were filed, but the footage told a different story. The eyewitness accounts told a different story. The trajectory of those bullets told a different story. Everything pointed to an unjustified shooting fueled by rage, jealousy, obsession, and a toxic relationship that never should have existed in the first place. Yet somehow, criminal charges were never brought. Somehow Cheryl walked away without facing a courtroom, without facing a jury, without facing real justice. As for Clevean Lambert, the man who was shot at 8 times by a police officer, he survived. By some miracle, by some stroke of luck, those bullets didn't kill him. He lived to tell his story. He lived to see another day. But his troubles didn't end when he drove away from that parking deck. They didn't end when his wounds healed. Because Clevean Lambert remains in custody to this day, awaiting trial for his own charges. The man who was shot by a police officer who lured him to an empty parking deck under false pretenses is behind bars. The man who was unarmed, who tried to flee, who barely escaped with his life, is the one sitting in a cell. Meanwhile, the officer who shot him, who violated department policy, who failed to report the shooting, who maintained an illegal relationship with a felon, walks free. She lost her job, yes, but she kept her freedom. She avoided prosecution. She's out there somewhere, living her life, while her victim sits behind bars. This case raises questions that demand answers, questions that should haunt everyone who hears this story. How did a sergeant get away with having a relationship with a known felon for so long? Where was the oversight? Where were her supervisors? Did anyone suspect? Did anyone ask questions? Or did everyone just look the other way because she was one of them? Why wasn't she charged after firing 8 shots at an unarmed, fleeing man? What part of that scenario meets the legal definition of self-defense? At what point does shooting someone who is driving away from you constitute protection of your own life? Why do the rules that apply to everyone else seem to vanish when the shooter wears a badge? Where was the accountability? Where was the justice? Where was the outrage? If this had been anyone else, if this had been a civilian shooting at a fleeing car 8 times, what would have happened? We all know the answer: arrest, charges, trial, prison. But because the shooter was a cop, because she had that badge and that uniform, the rules changed. The standards shifted. The consequences disappeared. When we give someone a badge and a gun, we're not just handing them equipment, we're trusting them with power. Enormous power. Power over life and death. Power to detain, power to arrest, power to use force, power to take a life if necessary. And that power comes with responsibility. It comes with accountability. It comes with the understanding that the badge makes you better, not above the law. But in this case, in this story, that trust was shattered. That power was abused. That badge became a shield to hide behind instead of a symbol of honor to uphold. And when that power was misused, when that trust was betrayed, when those 8 shots were fired, the consequences should have been severe. They should have been immediate. They should have sent a message that no one, not even a police sergeant, gets away with attempted murder. But the only person who faced real, lasting consequences was the victim. The man who was shot at. The man who barely survived. The man who now sits in a cell, waiting for his day in court while his shooter walks free. That's not justice. That's not accountability. That's not how the system is supposed to work. This is the story of Cheryl Lashai Clark, a woman who was supposed to serve and protect, but instead used her position to hunt down someone from her past. A woman who carried a badge that should have meant integrity, but used it as a cover for revenge. A woman who fired 8 shots at an unarmed man and claimed self-defense. A woman who violated policy, violated the law, violated her oath, and still walked away without facing criminal charges. A woman who lost her job but kept her freedom while her victim lost his. And this is the story that reminds us, that forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room isn't the criminal with a record. Sometimes, it's not the person everyone suspects. Sometimes, the most dangerous person is the one wearing the badge, the one we're supposed to trust, the one who swore to protect us. Because when that person breaks bad, when they cross the line, when they use their power for personal vendettas, the damage is immeasurable. The betrayal cuts deeper, and the system that's supposed to hold them accountable often fails. That's the real crime in this story. Not just what happened in that parking deck on a cold January evening, but what didn't happen afterward. The charges that were never filed, the trial that never took place, the justice that was never served. Remember this case. Remember Cheryl Lashai Clark and Clevean Lambert. Remember what happens when power goes unchecked, when relationships violate policy, when the badge becomes the weapon. And remember to ask the hard questions when stories like this surface. Because if we don't hold those with power accountable, if we don't demand answers, if we don't insist on justice regardless of who pulls the trigger, then we're all at risk. We're all just one parking deck, one phone call, one lie away from becoming the next victim in a story that should never have happened. This is true crime, but it's also a true failure of the system we're supposed to trust. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like this video, and share with your friends and family. Thank you.